Welcome back, welcome back. Thank you all for joining. DJ Chill Will Evans, what's up? First in the house. We got my dude Gleh, always on hand. Can't catch him, always there as well. What's up, guys? Dilly dilly indeed. Now, talking today, we're going to do a little bit of Mavs talk. I know, shocking, right? On a Sunday? But we're going to do a little bit of Mavs talk, and we're going to talk about some of the latest developments, talking a little bit about what we learned from Media Day, as well as the NBA's, or rather the Mavericks' investigation into their own front office, what the NBA's decision is, and all of that, what it means going forward. Glad, nice thumbnail. Oh, thank you. I actually spent a pretty good amount of time building this thing out from scratch earlier today. Sports Fury, what's up? Yeah, so the photos that I used for the thumbnail came from the photo shoot from Dallas Sports Fanatic. The co-owner of Dallas Sports Fanatic, Michael Lark, was actually at the photo shoot part of Media Day, and so all of these are, you can find them on the Dallas Sports Fanatic Facebook page, probably as well as their Twitter and all of that. So I used those to kind of construct this thumbnail from scratch. Glad you guys like it, though. I did put a fair bit of time into putting all this together. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what we learned from the NBA's investigation, first and foremost, what its decision and punishment was. I'll answer that question in a sec, DJ. What we learned, essentially, I want to say it was it Thursday that we learned this decision? Regardless, what we're looking at, we knew a lot of the bad details initially. What we didn't know was what the punishment was going to be. We knew about everything related to the sexual harassment that's gone on all the way to the previous CEO, I think is dating all the way back to 2000 is how far we have documented cases of this. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. I'm suddenly drawing a blank. But Ursary, something like that. So the CEO, sexual harassment in office, all kinds of inappropriate comments, and at times even touching, no go, very bad. The head of human resources didn't really report any of the stuff, or rather didn't document it, didn't take action. And so he was, I think to some extent, I mean, he was let go, but I think at some level he was a little bit of a scapegoat in it as well. But Ursary, that's it. Yes, Rangers King as usual on top of it. So, the head of HR let go as well. We have this is almost too comical to say, but the nickname that this guy had around the office, the serial masturbator at the office who would just look at ungodly amounts of porn at work on his work computer and all of that. God. His name is Pants DJ because he always in his pants had some kind of record spinning sort of thing going on there. So it's hard to take a story seriously when you have one of the main players being someone named Pants DJ. But this guy got away with it for a long time because he was by a mile the best guy they had in sales. And so they kind of looked the other way. I think at one point Cuban did address it, saying, you know, if that ever happens again, you're fired. And nothing else really came of it in that regard. The guy kept looking at porn, but whatever he was doing, that was the extra egregious that Cuban momentarily stepped in, was kind of put aside. And again, if he's not the #1 guy in sales, there's no way they put up with that. If it's like an intern or the social media guy, no way they put up with that. But as bad as those are, what stands out to me as the most unforgivable one is what we know about Earl K. Snead, the Mavs.com writer, who basically had multiple incidents of domestic violence against different girlfriends, one of which was a previous girlfriend not affiliated with the Mavericks, and with whom he beat her up, I think broke her wrist. There was a police report. In fact, he was arrested outside of the Mavs office at the AAC, and despite all of that, no discipline was brought toward him. Then later on, because no discipline was ever filed, he eventually started dating someone else who worked for the Mavericks, and she suffered kind of a similar fate in that he roughed her up and everything. Excuse me. And Yeah, it's not a good deal. He roughed her up, and he only got canned as soon as the SI report broke 6 months ago. And these incidents, the second one I think was like from 2011 or 12. So this guy, long after all this stuff happened, multiple domestic incidents, was still on the Mavericks payroll. And it's crazy to me. It's like had this not broken, he would still be there today. And that's what I can't wrap my head around. Because it's like, dude, if you're a writer for Mavs.com, you're making, I mean, you're so low on the food chain, it's absurd. Like, you're not making a whole lot working that job. So why was that the hill that Mark Cuban was willing to die on, so to speak? I tend to think that Earl K. Snead knew enough about the other chaos going on in the Mavericks organization with regard to the sexual harassment, with regard to, well, that one kind of falls into the sexual harassment thing, the Pants DJ dude and all of that. But I think he knew something related to those subjects, and as a result, Cuban kind of kept him around because he didn't want that stuff leaking. But if that's the case, that acknowledges then that Cuban, or whoever made that decision, would have known about this, whereas the report suggests that, hey, Cuban really didn't know anything going on. And I know the Mavericks funded this investigation from a third party, but it is interesting to me that Cuban, someone we're told is super hands-on with everything he does, didn't know about all this stuff, some of which was dating back over 20 years. So either he's not near as involved as we're told he is, or he was aware and in some way complicit. I don't know what it is, but the end story that we're faced with here, Mark Cuban, because the NBA rules say that the league can only fine an owner $2.5 million, they decided they weren't going to do that. By rule, they can only do $2.5 million. So what they did instead is basically strongly insist, and that tells me that there were alternative options as well, but we won't know what they were. Basically, strongly insist that Cuban needed to pay $10 million, basically donate $10 million to these various causes and charities and things like that help. It helps basically with empowering for the women and fighting against this kind of stuff, sexual harassment and things like that. So it's good that this much money is going toward that. But the fact that Mark Cuban isn't facing any kind of discipline himself from the league, I thought that was going to be the easiest given, because we know how much Cuban cares about this team and how obsessive he is. He's always there on the sideline in his section by the bench. So I thought it was going to be a layup that he would be suspended for at least half the year. I thought it would be the full year, and I thought that's something that'll hurt him. That'll get his attention. So that to me was the obvious, and that didn't happen. And Adam Silver, the NBA's commissioner, has even kind of said he's defended essentially not making any action on that front. So it's a really crappy situation. I hate that this had to happen at all, let alone in our own franchise. But it's more in the sales and front office area. It's not anything tied to the players or coaches. I know some people who are really upset about this, and they're saying, I just can't root for the Mavericks. And I look at that and I'm like, I understand. It's in the front office. It has nothing to do with Dirk. It has nothing to do with Carlisle. They were some of the people who spoke out most harshly about it when it first was being reported. So I don't think that the two, just because they're under the same banner, you can't look at them as if they're as guilty as everything that was going on over here. So I don't know, man. It's going to be a shadow that kind of hovers over the franchise for a little bit, but the important thing for now is that it's been dealt with, and as long as they correct the culture and it's not something that will happen again, then okay. Fix what you can, raise awareness, and try and prevent it from happening again and move on. That's really all you can do. So let me jump on some of the comments here. Shout out to all of you guys. I already hit some of these guys. DJ Chill Will Evans, Gleh, Kent Ketchum, Abraham Young, what's up, guys? Sports Fury, don't know if you're still in the house, but what's up? Sugar Daddy, what's up? Dennis, how's it going, man? Brett Bender. There's a good, strong patron right there. What's up? And King Busy. What's up? All right, so let me go through some of these comments here and make sure I'm hitting any questions that come through. What I did love to find out about all this was Cynthia. I wasn't keeping up with her, I guess, but she's a woman of power and respect. She'll do well for us. I love her. Yeah, Cynthia Marshall. So she was some kind of executive with AT&T prior, and she was a good hire for them, not just because it's like, oh, well, one of the main things was sexual harassment, so hiring a woman makes sense because it's, you know, sending out that signal that, hey, we're addressing this and we're specifically hiring a woman. You know, I don't think that that's what it is. I think she has proven her merit more than enough on her own to warrant this kind of hiring and position. So I with her kind of leading the charge and fixing the culture in the front office and in the sales department and all that, I feel much more secure that it will be dealt with properly. So I agree with you. I'm glad that they hired her. I think she's a good hire as well. Dennis, what's up? You always stream at perfect times for me in Europe. I don't always plan on watching, but then I see TDP is live. Nice. Hey, that's what's up. Shout out watching us from Europe, man. That's cool. But yeah, twice on Sundays. Law likes to say that as well. Every day and twice on Sundays. I don't stream every day, but I stream Mondays, Thursdays, and then I got 2 to 3 shows I do on Sundays as well. So I stay pretty busy around here. Speaking of streams on Sunday, I'm probably going to have another pretty big announcement here soon. I'm not going to say too much on it because I'm still working out some of the stuff, but all indications are we're going to have another very big announcement for the channel and the website, and this will be very interesting. So I'll keep you guys tuned. I'll probably do another live with DDP announcement video when that comes out. Earl always seemed really strange. Yeah, Earl K. Sneed. Yeah, I met Earl K. Sneed a couple different times when I was covering the Mavericks and all that for Project Shanks when I got locker room access and media credentials. I probably had, I don't know, 2 or 3 sentences of total interaction with him, but I don't know. I don't want to suggest anything like that, but I understand why some people would have kind of that impression and everything. I obviously he's someone who's dealt with his own anger issues and things like that, and it needs to be corrected. I don't know what's going on with him. I know he's trying to get back kind of into the media sphere, and he's got his Twitter account and all that again, but I don't know. That's a sticky situation, and it's hard to see him getting another opportunity as far as NBA media goes. I always felt like Sneed, okay, was a dick and then kind of off about him. Wasn't really a nice fellow. That said, still really weird that he was the nice reporter for years. Yeah, it is. He was in all the Mavs.com videos too. Yeah, I saw him pregame interviewing guys and all that. He would get Carlisle, and then he would get, whether it was like someone like Barea or Devin Harris, people like that when they came through. He would, or not when they came through, but before the game, he would get some Mavs.com interview segment, something with them. So he was our championship run. Earl K. Sneed has been around for a while. Yes, Earl K. Sneed was there during the title year. If you're talking about the CEO, I think the CEO was gone by 08 or 09. The main guy that a lot of this was attributed to on the first part I talked about. But it is something that, yeah, there are things that kind of tainted around that championship year. The claims that went away for a while. I haven't heard them resurface anytime soon, but the whole thing with Mark Cuban and claims of him sexually assaulting a woman at like a club in Portland or something like that, like during the season, and that was during 2011. I mean, I think it was during the title year. So I never heard anything much that came from that. Just that was one of those things that during all the SI stuff, this also came out, and that one's gone pretty quiet. So I don't know what happened there. But that is something that just comes back to mind as all this other stuff from the SI investigation comes out. And like, oh yeah, but what happened to this? It's a separate thing. It's not the front office. It's his own conduct, but it does pop back into your brain just because of the timing. I had no idea. Cuban only visited the office maybe like 5 times in all those years. Well, I don't know. That would certainly be the signal for a not always around owner, or not uber present and aware of everything going on within your company. They said he was only involved in the basketball side, which is still neglect. I agree. I'm glad I can finally make it to one of the Mavs streams. Yeah, it has been a minute, I guess, since you were able to catch us live on here. But nice to see you as always, Brett. Cuban needs to forget about Shark Tank for a good while. Never liked him doing the show anyhow. Focus on this house. Yeah, I agree. Cuban, it's not just Shark Tank though. He's got a lot of different stuff going on all levels. He's a billionaire. He's involved in tons of different businesses. The Mavericks are more his passion project, which is why I think he keeps more to the basketball side and just kind of puts people in charge to run the business side. But it's a shame. I mean, it is. I understand. I remember the first time the Mavericks missed out on Deron Williams, which now we know was us dodging a bullet. But when they missed out on him the first time in like 2012, Cuban wasn't available for the free agent meeting with Deron Williams because he was filming Shark Tank that weekend. And I'm like, dude, that's like one of your top free agent targets and you're not there? Like, what are you doing? And Deron Williams even said that he took that as kind of an insult. And so that was part of why he chose Brooklyn instead of Dallas in 2012. So there is something to it. Shark Tank has certainly gotten in the way in the past. Dallas prospect, I think he wasn't suspended because he cooperated with the investigation. Wasn't suspended. Oh, we're talking about Mark in this case, in this investigation that they ran? Yeah, he did. And that's a good point as well as for why he didn't face actual suspension from courtside and all of that. I mean, maybe that's all it is, but I'm glad they're taking steps, and I do believe that he is contrite in his apologies and his owning it, but it's one of those things as well where we need to just make sure it doesn't happen again, take the proper steps, and prevent that from ever happening again. King Busy, that's too far. Too far. Is that when I was talking about him being suspended from courtside for a year? I mean, it's whatever you think on that. If you disagree, that's fine. That's not a hill I'm willing to die on. I'm just saying for how detailed and how numerous these transgressions were, I could have certainly understood if he was banned from the team for a year. Because really, as far as basketball operations are concerned, Donnie Nelson runs that team anyway. So in that regard, it would have been kind of same business, typical business as you would expect generally. Synth is going to make sure of that, and I couldn't be more proud that she's in charge now. Oh, I heard her talk. I'm a believer of her. She's great. No window dressings with a hire whatsoever. Very good. Uh-oh, announcements. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, I'm not going to make the announcement on this particular stream. I'm going to keep you guys in the loop and let you know once I get up to the actual appropriate time, once I have the full everything locked down. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for sure. Let's see. Isaiah Hunt, what's up? Earl should be in jail. Yes, Earl K. Sneed. Yeah, I agree. He should have absolutely faced some more repercussions for what he did, because we have more than enough to suggest that, I mean, at bare minimum, he should have been fired at the time. And that's why I tend to think he might have known some of the skeletons in the closet, and they were kind of worried about what he might say. Now that all of it's out, and that's why I think he got fired the second the Sports Illustrated thing came out, because at that point, everything's out in the open. So he has no more leverage. Like, all right, bye, you're gone. We got to look like we're getting out in front of this right the hell now. So I think that's why it worked out the way it did. But it's still one of those things where unless he knew something and was, a threat to release that, I don't know how you keep him around. And Cuban's answer at the time, which I thought was a terrible answer, and he'll say in hindsight it was as well, was that he was afraid that if he didn't keep him close, that the guy might continue to be a problem and do more of that in the future unchecked, whereas they were at least going to send him to like anger management and therapy and try and help him work through it. But man, I don't know about that. It's just one of those things where I'm like, it's acknowledging awareness of it at the time as it was happening. And I don't think anyone would have possibly blamed you had you let him go at the time. And now holding on to him, even though no other incidents have happened since the last one that we're aware of around 2012, it's still one of those things that it's like, dude, you stood by him? Like, people, that's what people can't wrap their head around, and that's one of the worst things as far as the investigation that makes Cuban in particular look really bad. I have arrived. Yes, you have. Now that Synth is here, it's not bad anymore that Mark isn't always there. Synth knows how to run it all. Yeah, I think that's accurate as well. When you said people were talking about not watching the games. Oh, okay, gotcha, King Busy. Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. That was how I felt as well, because I'm like, I understand you're really upset and there needs to be sweeping change, but that's not something where you just cast aside your entire fandom and, renounce your fandom for forever because of something that wasn't even involved with the guys that you became a fan of. You didn't become a fan of the Mavericks because of Mark Cuban or anyone like that. You became a fan of the Mavericks because of guys like Dirk and Nash and, depending on your age, Dennis Smith. I was going to say Harrison Barnes, but I don't know how many people became fans of the Mavericks because of Harrison Barnes other than his own friends and family maybe. But you get the idea. You became fans of the players and maybe even to some extent of the coach, Rick Carlisle, and everything like that. And that's what defines your fandom, not the people that do the business side of things behind them. I think we're going to be the shock of the West this year like the Jazz last year. Do I agree? Man, the Jazz were a 5 seed last year, and it took the breakout, like an absurd rookie breakout from Mitchell. I don't agree to that extent. I could see things breaking right and us surprising a lot of people and being better than people project. But to say all the way to the 5 plus advancing in the first round of the playoffs, that to me feels like a bit of a stretch given where we are now. I do think we are in a good situation as far as our bench. Our bench is going to be better, and I'll get to that in a minute as well. I saw someone, I think it was DJ Chillwill, ask the question earlier, and I'll address that here momentarily as well. But I look at the bench, and it was already a strong unit last year for Dallas, but it's going to be even better this year. So let's pivot out of all the murky, not so fun stuff that people want to talk about. Let me see, one sec here. Dallas Sports Fanatic checking in on something for... I'm going to be live tweeting the Cowboys game from their channel and doing a write-up after the fact. One sec. Sorry. I feel like this is unprofessional, but it is business related. Sorry. So, so let's get into Mavs Media Day. Again, the source of all of these lovely thumbnails up here, well, I guess it's one thumbnail, comprised of all these photos from Mavs Media Day that I compiled for that. So let's talk about that and what we found out. First and foremost, one of the main things that we've been talking about for some time, we do now know that it is, quote, very likely Dirk comes off the bench in what is presumed to be his final season in the NBA. Year 21 will be Dirk coming off the bench, and we're probably looking at that because, I mean, really look at it this way. Dirk was the 5 last year, in large part because of limited mobility, and he even said that in Media Day himself. So they put Harrison Barnes at the 4, Dirk was the 5, but now they got DeAndre Jordan, they have a much better 5, a true 5, in at that position. So if you're running Dennis Smith Jr., now, some people want to say that Wes Matthews is the guy pushed to the bench, but I think Dallas will still start Wes Matthews. Projected lineups show that. Year 3, you'll then have Luka Doncic or Harrison Barnes. 3 and 4 interchangeable. The initial projections I saw echo what Rangers King has been saying for several weeks, a couple months even, that Harrison Barnes will be the 3, Luka Doncic will be the 4, and DeAndre Jordan will be the 5, with Dirk presumably being the 6th man. Now, here's why that's significant to me. We know that, let's see here. Worth noting, this is from Tim McMahon of ESPN. Worth noting, with Dirk coming off the bench likely, last year Dirk in the reserves, which were Barea, Farrell, Harris, and Powell, was a plus 19.4 points per 100 possessions. Imagine that group with Luka Doncic on the floor instead of Yogi Ferrell. Whoo! So Dallas has a good bench. They're going to have Barea, Devin Harris. They're going to have now Dirk on there as well. You're still going to have guys. You're still going to have like Kleber on there and guys like that. It's going to be a good bench unit for Dallas, and I think now they'll have even more scoring. But before we get too far down that road, it's worth noting that Dirk will be, quote, very limited at the start of training camp as he is still dealing with lingering soreness in his ankle tendons and all of that, which, given the surgery he had and his age, it's not surprising in the least. I think that, Carlisle says Dirk will be very limited in camp after still feeling soreness in his ankle tendons last week. He did, earlier this week, do some light shooting and lifting. So something worth noting there. But we'll keep an eye on how that develops. I'm not really worried about it. I think Dirk, given his age, it's going to take him some time to work up to it, but he's not going to have to play a ton of minutes anyway, compared to what he was in years past. So let's hit on some of these comments here. Mark Aguirre, Rolando Blackman, and Donaldson. That's what's up. That's Mavs fan before I even became aware of the team, honestly. For me, my initial guys that brought me in were Dirk, Nash, and Finley. I jumped in 01-02. It's either 01-02 or 02-03. But yeah, that was around the time that I came in, and so that was the first guys that really caught my attention. Moved to Big D late 85. Mavs were good then. They got close. Yeah, in 88, they got to Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, and it took Magic Johnson's Lakers to upend them to then go on to, I think, beat the Pistons that year. DJ is such a great guy. I knew that before, but he is so much nicer than I thought. DeAndre Jordan, yeah. DeAndre Jordan, Harrison Barnes has already kind of said the dude is an absolute clown, but it's a very lighthearted guy that people... He works well, and, he's a likable guy. He's got a good charisma about him, and that's only going to help the locker room. Now, I don't think he's the highest basketball IQ, but thankfully he doesn't have to be on this team because that's going to go to guys like Dirk and Dennis and Luka, Harrison Barnes. There are a lot of good pieces around here that maybe they can do a little something there. By far, though, Dirk is my all-time favorite player, always has been. Yeah, I agree. Dirk is my favorite athlete of all time. Doncic will not guard fours for sure, but on offense he can do it. Yeah, TBUCB. I agree with that. They're going to have to get a little creative in terms of how they line him up. But if you think about it, if he's playing the 3, that's the harder defensive assignment. He's 6'8" and 20 years old, so I'm relatively confident that there are going to be matchups he can do. But against some teams, you're going to have to move him around the 3, the 4, depending on that. Or even if he's playing the 4 on offense, he's going to be guarding a different position on defense because they're going to try and kind of hide him just a little bit. I think he's an adequate defender, but early on they're going to have to work around some of his things, like his lateral quickness isn't super great because he's not the same degree of athlete that a lot of these other draft picks were from this past draft. And people look at that as a negative, but they don't take into effect his ridiculous basketball IQ and all that other stuff he can do. Let me find... So here's Dirk talking about Luka Doncic's transition into the NBA. He plays with a savviness that I never had at that age, that I still might not have now. That's really high praise there, and that's something worth taking note of for sure. Elias, there's no way Luka will play the 4. I watched him play a lot last year in EuroLeague, and believe me, far more useful at the 2 or 3. I think they're going to move him around, but everything that they've shown penciled in thus far is the 4, is the suggestion. And Rangers King will tell you that there was a lot of talk from Carlisle even before the draft of ideally slotting him in at the 4. Let's see. Just going through my notes here. But I think it'll be an interesting season for the Mavericks. Absolutely. They have a lot that I think they're going to be an exciting team. I don't know if they're a playoff team necessarily. I'm gonna try not to scream about Seth Curry anymore, but that's just because there's no point. It's already, what's done is done. I need to let that go, I know. But that's my only kind of concern is three-point shooting off the bench. I know that they signed Ryan Brokov. I know Rangers King in particular is very high on him. I like the signing as well, but it's one of those things where you just got to see how the actual transition is going to go for him. So here's something I wanted to show as well real quick. This is some of the photos from the media day. Let me see. There we are. Fade that over. Now, you see here, over my face, now the Dirk one on the left, to be honest, is not from this year. But they took the, I believe that's 2001 photo shoot with Cuban, Nash, and Dirk, and the cowboy hats, and it's all kinds of 90s cringe. And they recreated it with Luka Doncic. I don't know who the guy holding Luka is, but Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith. You can see Dennis is even trying to match the exact pose of Nash's arms, kind of. That's hilarious, I think, to mirror that from 2001 to 2018. Now, I don't know necessarily if it'll be one of those things that, you know, it's one of those things that people got a good laugh, because at this point, we know how badly the cowboy hat and the Dirk getting a piggyback ride from Cuban photo has aged. That's one of those things where people will always bring that up. People who are not Mavs fans will like throw that out there and be like, really, dude? We get it. And so leaning into it, I think, for the Mavericks and playing off it for, you know, the purpose of humor, I think is the best way to go. Because if you weaponize it yourself against yourself, then it's like, hey, you can't say anything about me that we haven't already said. So he's the assistant GM, but it really should have been Dirk. Yeah, Dennis, good call out on that. I actually kind of had the same thought when it wasn't. I was like, maybe I thought the same thing. Maybe it should have been Dirk, or if not Dirk, I don't think you could ever get Rick Carlisle to do it. But I did have the thought. I think that picture is great. I think it's great in the sense of, like, it's funny, but it is one of those things where people who aren't Mavericks fans are looking at that and they're like, like laughing at it in a different way. Mavericks assistant GM Keith Grant. Okay, there you go. Dirk would have been a fitting option as well there. I think it's smart that it wasn't Cuban, not just because I think Cuban's had like hip replacement surgery or something like that, but also because, you know, with everything else surrounding Cuban, even just days before when the investigation stuff turned up, it wouldn't have been a good look for Cuban to be there smiling and all of that. Even if years later people would look at that photo and not have that context on hand, in the now, people would have looked at that and be like, yeah, that's not really looking remorseful or anything there. Like, you got other stuff going on. So it is what it is. In that case, assistant GM, not a bad choice. Donnie Nelson would have been funny too. Marquise, what's up? Why does Locked On Mavs podcast always suggest we trade Dennis? Nick always throws it out there. I don't know, man. I have heard them say that a time or two. I don't know why that idea is floated out there, because I hate the idea personally. It's not something that I'm a fan of at all. But he's going to have value, and he's got a great reputation around the league. But I also look at that and say to myself that I'd rather deal with oh, wow, my counter wasn't going up to date there. I was like, man, I'm still at 8, huh? 28. There we go. What's up, guys? But yeah, I don't like the idea at all, because I think Dennis Smith is going to be a huge part of recruiting free agents in the future, and I do think he has a very high ceiling. So the idea of trading him does not appeal to me. Can't catch him. I remember Dirk, I think, his second year in the league went 40 for 42. 40 and 42, like the record. I was happy because I could see progress. If I see that again this year, I'll be happy regardless of the record. I would be thrilled with 40 and 42 personally. I do think that they're going to be probably looking at something in the neighborhood of 36 to 38 wins. That's my gut feeling right now. I think the pick and roll threat that they're going to have with literally anyone on their team, because J.J. Barea is a great creator of offense in the pick and roll, great passer for lob dunks and everything. We already have seen that with like Dwight Powell. Devin Harris is also very good. Devin Harris is probably one of the most underrated slashers, like cutters in the league, is what I meant to say. I think he's very underrated in that regard. So you have the two of them. Then you add in, obviously, what Dennis Smith can do and how I think he will elevate his game in year 2, show off a more efficient offensive flair just because he's not going to be asked to do as much. He's not going to garner the same smothering attention he did at times last year. Now, Harrison Barnes, I think he'll be a little better in terms of efficiency as well. He's been caught at that like 19 points per game level. If he can elevate just a couple points, I think that'll help because it's less being asked of him because now he has Luka Doncic. Dennis Smith is going to be another year more developed, and he'll have the safety valve of DeAndre Jordan. So you got all these guys who can work and be more efficient. And that doesn't even count Luka Doncic himself, who his vision and playmaking ability is blowing even his teammates away in pickup games and all of that in the lead up to camp for them. So they've been commenting on just how he has far and away been the best player on court in some of this stuff. Now, it's not NBA action, but it is games against NBA talent, so it does speak for something. But I think his vision is absurd, and the kind of stuff he's going to do and the players he's going to find, whether it's Dwight Powell or DeAndre Jordan, whatever, you're going to see him make some serious plays that get people turning their heads. So I'm eager to see what they can do. My question is, can DeAndre Jordan get back to being a better rim protector like he was years past? Because he was less than a block a game last year, and that was a pretty fall off for him based on where he was in 2015 when the Mavericks went after him the first time. If he can reaffirm that and his presence helps the overall defense and helps in the rebounding department where they've also been abysmal in recent years, then they'll be much better, and that gives them a chance. But the West is even more stacked this year than it was before, so it might be one of those things where all they have to do in the meantime is just keep showing progress and making steps in the right direction, and then maybe in a couple of years or 2-3 years, whatever, it'll be time where they'll be suddenly the contender and they can really make something happen. The Warriors dynasty still has some time left in it. I'd say probably that 2 to 3 years. The Rockets are going to keep being around there and being pesky. I think the Spurs will still be good, but they're not going to be the Spurs like they've been. And Oklahoma City, they're going to be kind of caught in that middle of the pack purgatory as well in the Western Conference picture, I think. Said Williams, Dirk, 6th man of the year for sure. We're the underdog, and we all know the power of the underdog. I dig it. I do think Dirk has, if he plays enough games, I could see him being in the discussion for sixth man of the year for sure. And if that's the case, then Dallas will be really good. If Dirk is in the 6th man running and the defense and rebounding is better and these guys look like who we think they can be, then they're going to be a much better team than we even realize. Tachia, I'm guessing. I can't wait to see these guys play. I want to see someone else play power forward other than Harrison Barnes. Yeah, Harrison Barnes is playing out of position in that regard. He's a tall guy, but he's really a small forward. We're making play power forward, and that does have its limitations as well. So I'm curious to see what moving, if Luka is going to be the 4 in a lot of these standard lineups we roll out there, then okay, Harrison Barnes is your 3, Luka's your 4. I wonder how much that helps Harrison Barnes, and if that balances out with Luka also being able to be effective, because sometimes it's not about, hey, Barnes plays better at the 3 and he's the number 1 scoring option, so we need him there. Well, if it's hurting Luka, then you need to do what helps you for the team. Dallas Prospect, are you so ready for Saturday? I am very eager to see Luka Doncic do something in a Mavs jersey, even if it's a preseason game. I'm very interested in seeing what what the guy can do, because I think even in a preseason game, most people aren't going to be super dialed in for. He's going to have 3 or 4 plays that, kind of make people go like, oh, all right, yeah. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll get probably one lob to like a Dwight Powell. DeAndre Jordan would be great, but we'll see. Do you see Doncic showing some dog in him, as in when he goes to the lane for a layup, someone puts him on his butt, he gets it in heads down first year like Dirk did, or gets supercharged? Do I see that from Doncic? Doncic talks trash for sure, and he's definitely got a clutch gene to him and some swag, but I don't know. I could see him doing that, but I don't see it being like his default setting, so to speak. I don't think the first game, if he goes to the rim and gets put on his butt, that he's going to jump up and get in the guy's face. I think that you're probably going to see a situation where if he's having a good game, or if the other dude just keeps going at him, then maybe he'll draw some kind of reaction. But I think he's pretty smart, and he might be more kind of based the way I was when I played, and that was to say, I tried to beat you with my play and let that do the talking. So if you were John with me up and down the court, then I just tried to make sure I hit a 3 in your face on the next trip down the court. So it just depends. I would be interested in seeing that, but I also kind of want him to somewhat fly under the radar if at all possible, which at this point it's probably not. But if he's John with dudes and getting in their face in the early games of the season, anyone who comes to town is going to be like extra on guard for him. And I think that's a losing battle if that's the route you try to take right off the bat. Luka gets fired up when he makes a highlight. Not always, but he's more expressive than Dirk. Yeah, that sounds fair. That does sound like what we've seen. My lineup looks like Dennis Smith, Luka, Harrison Barnes, Powell, Dwight Howard. Interesting. Well, I do like that you still have Dirk coming off the bench, because I think that's necessary at this point. I know some people have struggled to wrap their heads or their minds around that at this point, but yeah, I think it's necessary. Luka at the 2 does not sound like what they've been discussing, but I'm sure there will be cases in lineups where that's the case, whether it's a starting lineup or whether you just see, lineups in the game where he's suddenly playing a different position. That's the beauty of him, is he can play 1 through 4 and be effective at every spot. So we'll see. Oops, I read that wrong. Gets motivated to make a comeback for sure. Can't wait to see Dennis. Wasn't sure what part of, Yeah. This podcast rocks. I'm hyped for preseason like never before. Side note, Ray Spalding is a sleeper, says Sed Williams. Ray Spalding is the sleeper of the draft. I think he is the steal of the draft. Getting him at pick 56, I think, was excellent. And I do think he will be a starter in a matter of a couple of years. Now, he can be a contributor for you earlier than that, for sure, but I think he's got that potential, absolutely. He could be your starting 4 in the future. And thank you for the compliment. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe to the channel. And hey, guys, just something to keep in note. You see all these lovely icons I've got down the side of the screen here. These are all the different platforms you can find the Dallas Prospect Show. Obviously, we got YouTube. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, all that. And then you got the Patreon link. But you also see the podcast there. If you ever miss the show for some reason, I know Brett was talking earlier about missing the show the last couple of weeks. If you ever miss the show, we do put it up either the same day or the very next day on our podcast. So you can find that on the iTunes on their podcast setup. You can find that in the Google Play Store, whatever app you use for your Android device. It's there as well. And SoundCloud. It's uploaded to our SoundCloud and goes out into these different platforms. So if you miss a show, you can always listen back to it if you want. You'll get your Mavs fast breaks there. You'll get the Big 12 college football roundup I do. You get all my Cowboys talk. Sometimes DDP Live shows up on there, or Live with DDP, whatever. Sometimes they'll show up as well, but I try to take as much of my content as I can and put it out there in case you missed it. It's always an option for you as well. Can't wait either. I'm hyped. Because they will always test out the most hyped rookie of the year. Yeah, we saw that last year. Draymond Green, checking Dennis Smith when he went to go try and dunk on him, and talking to him like, "Oh, not happening, not ever dunking on me." Like they already knew at that point that he was a highlight reel and that he wants to dunk on people, and so Draymond made a point of basically body checking him and then talking smack. Adam Proctor, can't catch him. I hope Texas rolls Oklahoma. Sir, we were friends. Now we are enemies. I'm kidding. That's fine. You got your wish. I get it. You want your West Virginia team to become the new favorite in the Big 12 until Oklahoma loses. They're the favorite. That's fine. It's fine. We don't have to agree on anything. On everything. I told people that every show because some people who will comment sometimes on the video, they'll comment on some innocuous thing I said like 40 minutes into a stream and say, "Oh, I stopped listening as soon as he said this," and like unsubbing or something like that. And I'm always like, you listened to 40 minutes, apparently, so you were subbed, and you listened to 40 plus minutes of the show. Clearly you were feeling and agreeing with a lot of what I said. If the first thing we disagree on makes you leave the show, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I'm trying to put out the best thing I can, but I'm going to be me. I'm going to say what I believe, and I always try to give supporting evidence for anything I say. So, you know, if that's the case, you do you, but I'm not going to change what I do as well. So, Ruben, what's up? I checked the time for the first preseason game, and it says 7 a.m. Is this true? They are playing... Rangers King, can you chime in? Is it that they're playing in China for this first game? Or is it... If they're playing in China, that would add up to that for sure. Let me pull up the schedule as well while I look at that, but I'll get you the answer, Ruben. Brett, I'm excited for this season because it'll be the first year that I will watch all 82 games and follow them much, much closer than I have. That's what's up. Yeah, screw that guy. I agree, said. Let's see here. No, don't give me last season's schedule. That means nothing to me, Bleacher Report. Why would I want last season's schedule at this point? That's just dumb. 6:30 a.m. versus Philadelphia. But I think it is in China. So that would be why. So yeah, that's going to kind of suck. I might have to wait on those highlights. I'll check it out as best I can. But yes, I am seeing that same time, Ruben. Kent, sometimes I'm reading something and when a new comment comes up, suddenly the line shifts and it throws me off. I just don't know his attitude yet is all. I love his game, just don't know how he handles the bullies yet. We got Dennis, so we'll have his back. I think that him and Dennis are going to be definitely bros for the franchise moving forward. I think they're going to be the 1 and 2 punch for the face of the franchise. And that's kind of the direction things are sort of moving now, where you don't have necessarily one guy that's the face, but you will have kind of an amalgamation where you have one or two, or like two guys, for instance, who combine for that role. Like Golden State would probably still claim Curry as their main guy, but it was really kind of Curry and Thompson. Now they have Durant as well, although Durant doesn't have the tenure there to have the same status, I would say. So still, you really got those two. Houston, to a lesser degree, you got Harden and Chris Paul. Just kind of depends on, you know, what your flavor is. So, what's up, Eric Donahue? I don't think they will, Adam Proctor, but it will be close. I see Dennis Smith Jr. being a 20-plus point scorer this year, and I see him and Harrison Barnes being the main scorers on this team. Luka will be the assist leader. I think that's pretty fair. I do think that. I think that Harrison Barnes will have a little more availability to elevate his game, even if it's just a point or two a game. That'll take him to like 21. Dennis Smith was basically 15 points a game last year and 29 minutes of action, so with him getting more minutes now, I think that his numbers will also go up, and I think it'll also be more efficient as well because of, as I mentioned, he'll have more scoring help, so defenses won't be able to clue in on him the same way, or key in on him, I should say, the same way as they did before. And now he's got a safety valve in a perennial lob threat, not just with Dwight Powell, but more importantly, DeAndre Jordan, and that will significantly help him as well. So I think it will help. 20 points, I could see it. If he is, he'll probably be around that same area as Barnes in that he's 20 or so. But yeah, I like it. And Luka being the assist leader, that meshes with my projections as well. So I dig it. Ray reminds me of Dwight Powell when he first arrived to Dallas, so if he develops at the same rate for now to 4 years later, maybe he has a legit jumper as well, and it'll be extra development. Nothing but love, my man. Yeah, I get you, Adam. I'm just playing. Yeah, as for Ray Spalding, yeah, I think so. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Dwight Powell, though. To me, Dwight Powell has already kind of reached his ceiling. He did have a good year last year. I don't mean to dogpile on him, but I think he's kind of reached the ceiling for where he can go. I think Spalding can go further. It just depends on how quickly and how well he can develop. Said Williams, yeah, screw that guy. Oh, yeah, the hypothetical talking about, or not hypothetical, talking about the guy that commented on the video and as soon as he disagreed with me on one thing, said I was a moron and moved on. Oh, it's funny, but it does happen every now and then. And I always love, too, how they'll say something, but they won't offer a counter argument. So I'll make a point, and then in this most recent case, I gave 9 games of empirical evidence spanning a year and a half, because it was a Cowboys talk one in that case, and they just say, you're an idiot, you're trash, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, where's your counter argument? I'll gladly debate, and if you say something that changes my mind, which I keep an open mind on these things, if you say something and I'm like, you know what, I didn't consider that, you're right. I've come on here on several shows, and whether it was something, even if it was something innocuous regarding like a player profile thing that I talked about with Max, Rangers King, or if it's something more egregious where it's someone that commented saying like, dude, no, you're totally off base, this is why, on like a different subject. And if I looked at it and I was like, you know what, you're right, I did not have the full perspective on that, I'll shout you out. I'll say, hey, great job. You're making this show better, you're helping me be better, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to not just entertain hopefully a little bit, but we're also trying to bring some actual information and be accurate with what we say. I don't mind grinding through the process of changing my opinion. Rangers King, the first game isn't listed on Google because it's versus a Chinese team. I don't know why I shortened that. It's at the AAC, 7:30 p.m. The next two are in China versus 76ers early a.m. Gotcha. So this Saturday is the first preseason game, but it's at the AAC. Okay, 7:30. How soon do you think the Greek Freak 2.0 will be unleashed? I'll say this. He is more raw than Giannis was when Giannis came over. I don't think he has as high of a ceiling either, but he is there's no doubting his physical abilities and everything like that. He has a busted-ass jump shot right now, and I say that in a loving way. His free throw shooting and jump shot are pretty awful right now, but he can jump out of the building. He does have long, lanky arms, and he can block shots and rebound. He filled up the stat sheet in his Summer League debut, and he shows that he's got some promise to him. How soon he can be a real factor on this team, I think he'll probably need 2 full seasons in the D-League, and then you can bring him up a little bit in year 3. Because, again, I think he's more raw than Giannis. And even Giannis' rookie year was quite forgettable. People kind of forget because of what they see him as now. People like to assume that that's just, he's always been some version of that, and that's not accurate. But I could see him being a good piece in the future, if not a starter. Starter feels like a little bit of a stretch, but he could certainly be a kind of like an Al-Farouq Aminu type for them, where even if he's not starting all the time, he can make a real impact off the bench with his athleticism and defensive abilities. Dennis, 6:30 Dallas time is perfect for me in Europe. That's 1:30 on a Saturday. Sheesh. That might be my first afternoon Mavs game ever. I would think so. Sup, Eric? Remember, it's the Beijing Ducks. Yes, the mighty Ducks of Beijing. Yep, but no, it'll be a good season, man. I am very excited to see where this team can go, because some of you know, one of my other teams, because I'm originally from Norman, Oklahoma, I'm also a huge Oklahoma City Thunder fan. But the Mavericks were my first and my prime. Even when they faced off in the Western Conference Finals, I rocked a Dirk Nowitzki jersey at the, they changed the name of the arena in Oklahoma City. Whatever. At Oklahoma City, I rocked a Dirk jersey in the Western Conference Finals. So my loyalty cannot be questioned. But in the case of the Thunder, you know, you had that long stretch where they were expected to be a contender, expected to win. They got to the finals once, but never got over the hump. And so then Durant leaves, and so the feeling kind of is a step back. It's not apathy, but your expectations are higher, and so you're frustrated when they do anything less than win a title. And with the Mavericks, we finally gotten to a point where we just had to hit a hard reset effectively, and now it is what it is. You have to get these new pieces, and now it is exciting again because you're watching them grow and develop, and it's not about just wins and losses. It's about them growing as players and watching the foundation of your future come together. That's something that for OKC, they kind of rocketed past that with Durant and Westbrook. They had one god-awful year when they first showed up in OKC. I want to say they were like 23-59, and then 2 years later they were like the flip of that record or something ridiculous. So it just depends, but I do enjoy watching young teams get better, and I think we're going to get that with the Mavericks for the next couple of years for sure. And then I think in 3 years they can be, a team pushing for home court in the playoffs. OKC is great. My brother is an OKC fan, so I watch a lot of OKC games. Westbrook is a beast. Westbrook is a beast. He'll make some infuriating decisions at times and plays, but there's no doubting he is a monster of a point guard. In terms of the physical specimen and athleticism, I don't think you can argue there's a better point guard in the league than Russell. Now, in terms of best point guard, you can make the argument, but in terms of just the physical tools and presence, I think Westbrook is what he is. 2 straight years with a triple-double average. I know there are some people who will undercut that and say he's stat padding. I don't agree with that, but, it is what it is. I feel like we're overstocked at point guard. Do you think we need to make a trade? Well, so at point guard, you got Dennis, you got Jalen Brunson, you got JJ, you got Devin Harris. Devin Harris plays 2. They played him at 2 a lot last year before he was traded to Denver. I almost said Utah. It was Denver. Then you have JJ. He has played the 2 as well. Remember, he got injected in the starting lineup in the finals at the 2, but he's a 1. Then you got Brunson, who depth chart wise, I've seen him listed more often as a 2. So they're combo guards that they have for the most part. They do have a logjam in the backcourt. There's no doubt there. You're right about that. But I do think that because they're combo guards, you can kind of make up for it a little bit more. As for if you do move someone, who is it going to be? Probably going to be Devin again. Because Devin added a bit of a three-point shot. Not a great three-point shooter, but a good one. And he's great at cutting to the basket. One of the better cutters in the league, I think. But he's not the same degree of playmaker like in the pick and roll that like Barea is, or Dennis Smith or anything like that. So I don't know. I think if push comes to shove, if you got an odd man out, it might be Devin Harris again, which I'd feel bad for him getting moved back-to-back years from Dallas when we know how much he loves Dallas and he wanted to come back to Dallas. I mean, it was pretty much understood when he left last year because he was on the last year of his deal at the time. It was pretty much understood, hey, you'll see us again in the summer. Like, I'm coming back. Although he didn't come back until Yogi Ferrell recanted on his initial agreement to re-sign with Dallas. Now, if they had Yogi as well, then I would really agree there's a logjam because Yogi's too small to play the 2. I know I just said Barea has played the 2, and they're like the same height, but I would still say that had they kept Yogi, I don't think they would have also signed Devin. I think Devin only happened because Yogi backed out. How much playing time do you think Brunson will get? Asks Bennett Smith. How much playing time? Well, early on, he's going to be buried on the depth chart, but I could see him getting some significant minutes as the season wears on because I think he brings a lot of good. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Ooh, it's what they always say Dak Prescott has. Intangibles. A lot of good intangibles to his game and leadership and all of that. I think as the season wears on, I think he'll begin pushing Devin Harris and, to a somewhat lesser extent, JJ Barea for some minutes here and there. If he's playing, he was a point guard in college, so he'll probably be a combo guard as well for them, which means he'll also compete with Wes Matthews for time. As a rookie, I don't expect a whole lot from him in terms of minutes, but I could see him getting something in the neighborhood of 12, 14 minutes a game, maybe by the end of the season. It's just one of those things where you gotta grind and work your way past some of these guys who have been around and with whom Carlisle has a lot of trust in running the offense and just getting significant minutes anyway. I do think he was a very fortunate pickup for the Mavericks as well, falling to the start of the second round, because I don't think Dallas planned on getting him, but when they saw him fall there, it just changed the discussion where suddenly it was like, oh, okay, he's here. Yoink. Normally, I don't think they would have looked at a backup point guard with their second draft pick, but, again, you got a guy like that falls to you, why not? That's one of those philosophical things that you'll hear it more in the NFL draft talk than you will in NBA, but I think the narrative is still the same. If you draft for need, you're going to leave some really good players on the board, and instead you draft the best available. And I think that's what Dallas did with Brunson. They looked at it and they said, really like what he can bring to the game and his intangibles. Didn't expect him to be here, didn't really have him in our plans, but he's here. I'm taking him. What's your thoughts on Karl Anthony Towns getting a $190 million extension? Minnesota had to do something because the Jimmy Butler thing has completely fallen apart. He wants to go to either Brooklyn or the Knicks or the Clippers. Not interested in playing with LeBron, from what I've heard, which is kind of interesting. I guess that's just some of the Eastern Conference rivalry kind of peeking out, but I don't know. They're clear that they want to move on from him. I don't think that Thibodeau wants to move on, but the owner of the team has made it clear that no, he is available for trade. He is on the block. And, they put out the report that he wanted more money, like some crazy amount more money and more years on his deal. And that's why it fell through or something. So anyway, what do I view this as for Minnesota? I view it as, well, the core we thought we had might be shaken, and we might be losing a guy that we thought was going to be a real piece for the next several years. But you know what? We're going to lock down the foundational piece of Towns for us for the meantime. As far as the money, that's just kind of the price of business at this point. I think it's a good pickup for them. I do. Or not pickup, but I think it's a good deal to get done for them. Kind of reassures the fan base a little bit, and it's saying, hey, we're taking a step back if Butler is moved, but at the same time, we're not going to fall off the map. You look at how the Butler situation turned out for Minnesota versus how the Paul George situation turned out for Oklahoma City. Similar situations. Both guys were acquired with effectively 1 year left on their deal. Was Butler 2? No, 1 year left on their deal. Both guys acquired. And OKC, they had the same mission. They had to convince the guy to stay because it wasn't a place he would have wanted to go on his own anyway. OKC was able to convince Paul George to stay. And surprisingly, Minnesota wasn't able to, even though I would have thought Minnesota had more pieces in place to compete immediately again than OKC, because OKC, it was clear at that point, Anthony was not the answer, Carmelo was not the answer, and they were going to have to move him. And to their credit, they managed to do it. So it just shows that things don't always work out, and you have similar situations that went very differently there for each team involved. But Anthony Towns getting $190 million, that sounds like a fair deal for him, and I think that's good. Good for them. I like it for them. Ruben, feel like Dennis Smith Jr. could be Westbrook 2.0. He's got a lot of that comp to him. He's got a 48-inch vertical, which is tied for the highest vertical in NBA history, and he's got a real explosiveness to him as well. I definitely think he has that element that Westbrook has, but I think he can be a better three-point shooter, honestly. Adam Proctor, FYI, no way Texas rolls OU. I was given Kent Hope, LOL, 52, OU 52, Texas 24. You can be back on my friends circle now, Adam. If that comes true, I'd be thrilled, because OU has had a bad habit of kind of playing with their food when it comes to Texas during so many bad years for Texas in the last decade. And they've even let them trip them up before. So we'll see. OU definitely needs a bounce back from this barely surviving at home versus Army. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Mavs move JJ and Devin if they find something of value, maybe a first rounder from the Rockets if the Knight experiment fails. I'd be shocked if you got that kind of price, a first rounder for JJ and or Devin. If you're talking about moving them as a package deal for a first rounder, that could be interesting. But Yeah, would they be open to moving both if things break that way? Sure, I could see that. It's just a matter of how it shapes up and, what the scenarios are. If Houston really feels like that's the difference for them, just like, the Cavs a couple of years ago with Darren Williams. We ended up not making a trade for them. We released Darren or waived him, whatever, and then he signed with them. But they were trying to work out a deal for Darren Williams. For that, they felt like that was a crucial part they needed. Turns out he was god-awful when he got there. Because both are expiring. Good context. I'd expect Brunson to get 12 minutes like Babois. I almost said Babois, and then I realized, no, we're talking about Babois. Talk about a one-season sensation who we had so many good offers to trade him, and we just thought he was so much better than he was, and we just held on to him, and then he wound up going for nothing. Roddy B. 12 minutes like Roddy B did in his rookie year. I so wish that we had Melton or Robinson. Yeah, those would have been good. Butler had 2 years left on his deal when they acquired him last year and this year, and a player option. There you go. It's not exactly apples to apples then, but it is still a similar situation in that you ultimately had to convince him to stay and re-sign him, and in their case they weren't able to re-sign him. Which thing stood out to you on media day? The confirmation that Dirk will, in all likelihood, come off the bench. The clarification that we could be looking at a lot of Luka at the 4, if not in the starting lineup, then certainly in significant minutes. And let's see, another thing that stood out to me in media day. I think there's good chemistry already among a lot of these guys. Dirk kind of joked and showed his old manness. He jerked? No, didn't do that. Joked that Dennis and Luka bonded over PlayStation or something like that. I think that's kind of funny. But yeah, I think there's a good chemistry already, and you see it with Barnes and with DeAndre Jordan as well. I think there is something to be said for that, and that's not to say that like it was like a bad locker room last year or anything like that. I don't think that at all. But I think that it helps that they have kind of that energetic, lighthearted guy in the room now, like DeAndre, and that they have 2 young kids who are basically going to be the faces of the franchise moving forward, and they're going to get to kind of come up together, grow together, and they still got like the presence of veterans like Dirk and Harrison Barnes, and even just for a smaller sample for at least this year, DeAndre Jordan, to kind of help groom them and everything in that regard as far as what it means to come up and to be a professional and do all of that. And for that record, I think Harrison Barnes is like the perfect example of that, because you talk about a consummate pro, that is Harrison Barnes. Regardless of what you think about how much money he gets from Dallas and what his ultimate ceiling is, there's no doubt the dude is a pro's pro, and that he absolutely understands what it means to be, an important focal point of a franchise and of a city. I mean, we can take on Knight and trade away JJ and Devin. That's enough value for a first. I agree. Because the contract. Yeah, I get you. Let's see. It's 2:53 here my time. I got about 35 minutes roughly before the Cowboys game starts. I am going to be live tweeting the Cowboys game for Dallas Sports Fanatic. It'll be on their account, Dallas_Fanatic. And in addition to that, I'm going to do a write-up for them on the game. Next Sunday, I'll have something. I'm going to have to change up my schedule for my broadcasts. Without saying too much, I'm going to have to change that around. I might even have to move the Mavs Fast Break to Saturday potentially, because I got to see exactly what's going down Sunday. And once I have absolute confirmation on that, I'll do another announcement video and let you guys know what's up, keep you in the loop. But yeah, again, if you can't join us Saturday, check it out on the podcast here. Just search The Dallas Prospect Live. It might just be under Dallas Prospect, but The Dallas Prospect Live, and you will find the show. Definitely follow us on that. You'll get notifications anytime we go live, anytime, or not live because it's a podcast. You'll get notifications anytime we update. The catalog, which means you're getting several episodes a week. And I'm going to start doing some podcast exclusives as well. Guys, let me know if you want to support us on Patreon, we got 3 pay tiers, $1, $5, $10, and at each of those you get discounts towards merch. I'm going to be rolling out a whole new merch line coming up here soon, working on some new shirt designs. Literally anytime I'm not live, basically I'm working on that. And you're going to also get options for things like voting for what the next upcoming videos I do are. I know I've been working meticulously in the background on this retrospective thing just because it's a new process, but you'll get things like that as well, and you'll get early access to some additional content as well as behind the scenes stuff as well. So check that out. You can support us in those different ways, but please subscribe to the channel, like us on Facebook, follow us Twitter, all that at Dallas Prospect, and that'll pretty much wrap up for my time here this show, guys. I got to get ready for this Cowboys game, but I will remind you, as always, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute. Oh, wait. Hold on. I already hit salute, but I actually do have something else to say in the way of that. Now that I've completely blown up the end of my show here. If you do, for whatever reason, want to send us stuff, some people asked about that. If you want to send us stuff, here's the P.O. box to send stuff. Whether it's something you want us to have or review or talk about or anything like that, there's your option there. And yeah, just keep tuned in, and we will do all of that, and we might have a new sponsor coming up here soon. Oh, wait.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
All right, guys, remember, until next time, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.